new 2K every year. I always bring you guys the news. I know you guys are interested in it, but you probably don't want to follow Ronnie and Mike Wang and all these dudes on Instagram and Twitter and websites and Google, and you just want to know what is the new game going to be like. So I always bring you guys that news. I don't waste time, I get right to it, so please drop a like for me not wasting your time, and let's get right into the news. The first tweet we have is from Nick Ruiz. He says, archetypes equal some builds being dominant themselves, with players not needing to be good with them. All-around builds equal everyone is a superstar, but there's skill gap for who's good at the game, like 2K16. This is why many of us want 2K16 characteristics. And he added LD2K and Mike Wang, and LD actually responded and said, we hear you. Now, the reason this is significant is because does this mean they could be going away from archetypes? Now, I have a hard time believing they're going to take away archetypes completely. A lot of people want 2K16 where, it was inside, outside, and balanced. I have a hard time believing they would go away from archetypes completely, but would it mean archetypes will be more versatile and they're not going to have it be like, you're basically just meant to do one thing? And, when you have one thing that you're exceptional at, it kind of makes some builds super overpowered. For example, some people might say a post scorer in 2K19, even if you're not good at the game, you can just abuse the post scorer animations because their post scoring attributes are so high and post scoring takeover is so overpowered, etc., etc. No shot at post scores. I'm just using it as an example. But LD said that they hear us, so who knows? Maybe they are going to kind of balance things out. We'll have to wait and see. The next tweet we have is from Mike Wang himself. He says, any specific archetypes getting takeover too easily? Is it too difficult with any archetypes? Reply and let me know your thoughts. Now, the reason this is significant is because, well, as you can see, this was in April. We're now in July, and obviously nothing changed in 2K19, so this was not a tweet about 2K19. This was for the devs to see what we thought going into 2K20. Now, obviously, it's significant because it's, letting them know maybe this build, like a stretch only has to hit 3 3-pointers to get takeover, as opposed to a playmaking build who needs to get like 5 or 6 assists or layups to get their takeover. They might balance that out even more. But the bigger point that a lot of you guys are probably even missing is the fact that he's asking about takeover in 2K20, meaning they're going to have takeover in 2K20 according to these tweets, and there's going to be even more talking about 2K20 and takeover. So a lot of people saying, oh, are they going to keep takeover, get rid of it, go back to, Grand Badge, or go back to 2K18 where it was just, your guy would get the fire emblem because he's hot? Well, judging by these tweets, it's looking like takeover is here to stay. So we'll have to see how they balance that out because, like I said, some takeover in this game is definitely overpowered. The next tweet is from Mike Wang again, and it was a poll. He said, how long should takeover last when activated? He gave 3 choices. He said, leave it as is, should last longer, should be shorter. Now, whatever you believe, it should be shorter, longer, or leave it as is. As you can see, the voting is pretty balanced, but for the most part, most people think it should be leave as is. But again, the big thing that a lot of people are missing is this was a poll that did not affect 2K19 at all, meaning it was for 2K20, which means takeover, they're planning on putting it in 2K20 yet again. Moving on away from the takeover for a change, I know I'm tall, thank you. I guess that's a cool Twitter name. He said, can we make all bigs have a set shot next year? What 7'3" dudes you see jumping 10 feet off the ground to shoot? Show me 2 in history and I'll be quiet. Mike Wang said, not saying we'll do it, but what do you think the height cutoff should be? This triggered a bunch of responses about, 7 foot, 6'11", 6'10". Some people even said 6'7". But besides the point, I do agree with the fact that taller players usually do not jump like 2-3 feet off the ground on their jump shots, but this would be a drastic change. This would really affect stretch bigs. Obviously, I was a stretch big for the majority of this year. I've been telling you guys I'm bored of playing stretch big. I'm not making one next year, and that remains true. But I do agree with the fact that like a player that's 7 foot or 7'1", for the most part, I'm not saying they shoot a complete set shot. They might jump off the ground a little bit, but they're not jumping off the ground 2-3 feet to shoot jump shots. Usually that's for, your guards, your 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" players. But occasionally, I'm sure we could think of a few that do leave the ground, a decent amount. But for the most part, I think he has a good point. You don't see 7'2" players with, base 11 jumping 2.5 feet off the ground to shoot limitless range 3-pointers. He does have a point there. It'll be interesting to see if they implement it. Mike Wang said they're, not saying they're going to do it, but what would the height cutoff be? if I had to say, I would probably go with 6'10 or 6'11. You could get get any base you want, and then if you're 7 feet or taller, you couldn't. I guess maybe we could lower it a little bit. Maybe 6'11, you can't get it. I'm not really sure. I'd really have to think about it, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. Moving on. Next tweet we have from Mike Wang. What are your thoughts on being able to dribble and shoot off the check? So this meaning as soon as you check up, instead of having to pass the ball inbounds, what do you think about being able to shoot right away, dribble right away? Now, this is similar to kind of the inbounds glitch that was in 2K19 in like the first couple weeks of the game. And it was pretty disastrous. People found super duper ways to cheese, but this also struck up another conversation on Twitter about allowing both defenders to move on the inbounds, which I honestly think is a good idea because, as you guys know, or maybe you don't know, one of the biggest cheeses this year was the offensive player standing in between you on the inbounds, holding LT. You pass the ball in, they get the defender stuck, pass it right back, shoot wide open. If both defenders could move on the inbounds, that would allow you to stop that cheese and a lot of other cheeses like D-pad and all that other stuff. And Mike Wang, responded with, it might be too difficult to get the ball inbounds, all that. People responded with clips from old 2Ks about it wasn't too difficult to get the ball inbounds when both defenders could move. So it went back and forth for a while. We'll have to see what they do, but for the most part about the dribbling off the inbounds, I don't think that's a good idea. Allowing both defenders to move, that's something we should definitely look at. And our last tweet of the day from Mike Wang. Got any feedback / ideas on free throw shooting in future 2Ks? Let me know. Now, I don't mean to be negative, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say the community is not too concerned about free throw shooting. I think it's fine, man. We could just leave that alone. Now, we haven't had too many leaks. I mean, that was about 6 or 7 tweets, I believe, and it did give us some insight about how they are basically telling us that Takeover is staying in the game. They're looking at archetypes being more versatile and balanced, not so much specific in one category, which makes, certain builds overpowered, essentially allowing players that are not skilled to still be able to dominate, things like that. But let me say, going into 2K20, we as a community need to be more positive and receptive towards the game. I'm not saying we shouldn't point out flaws and things that are fixable or need to be corrected, but as a whole, we're pretty negative about our own game. I see people tweeting all the time about how bad 2K19 is. And honestly, it's a theme. Every year we tweet about how bad the game is all the time. There's videos. I understand negativity sells, but let's be a little more positive about the game. 2K19, at least in my opinion, I'm going to be honest with you guys, it's a good game. I'm not saying it's the best 2K ever made, but it certainly is not a bad game. The gameplay is solid. It is fun. There are things that should be, corrected that weren't corrected, or they took too long to correct. An example, pushing and things like that. But for the most part, the game as a whole is solid. Can we clean it up and fix some things? Of course, and we should communicate that to the devs and to, content creators and anyone else that has an influence over the game. But let's not make it so that every year this game sucks, we hate it, but we're still buying it, aren't we? More and more people every year are buying 2K. Which means it is not a bad game. It'll continue to get better, but we can certainly help the devs and help the, the producers and all that stuff make the game better. But as a whole, let's not have this negative vibe around our game every single year. I don't know if it'll make a difference, but listen, I appreciate y'all. I appreciate everyone watching this video, man. It's Saturday. Go enjoy the rest of the day. Please drop a like on the video, like I said. As we continue to go on, I'll keep bringing you guys the news as it comes out. I'm not going to clickbait it and say, triple, quadruple archetype, all this stuff. I'll just give you guys the news so that you don't have to go searching on the internet and find it. I'll put it into, a video between 5, 10, 12 minutes long, depending on how much news there is. And I will put it out there for you guys so that it's all in one place. You can get the news in a couple minutes and know what you can expect from the new 2K. So make sure you subscribe if you guys are new, man. Like I said, please drop a like. I appreciate y'all watching this video, man. Go enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm out. Peace.